right? So the very first thing that I always like to think about is taste. And then, does it make you money?
The food job that we're exploring today is food industry consultant. The professionals with this food job are Lara Tiro, founder of Rebel CPG, and Christine Farkas, founder of iHeartFood and host of the podcast, Munching on Molecules. In this episode, you'll hear how they help food businesses go from kitchen concept to retail ready.
So really the consulting space has been that it's connecting ideas to, okay, let's scale this, let's put solutions in place. And there's that innovation. Now we need to execute it and blending those elements together.
How to adapt and problem solve within the food industry.
Helping build brands understand COGS and so that they can scale profitably.
And why taste, strategy, and collaboration matter if you want to build a sustainable career in the food industry.
I never knew all these experiences, all these varied experiences in different companies would lead me to where I am today. So just don't be afraid to start. Well, I'm a food scientist by training. I graduated from UBC in 2004. And then 4 years ago, I founded a consulting company called Rebel CPG, and it's where I help food businesses scale from kitchen concept or idea to retail ready. My consultancy bridges science, operations, and commercialization. So things like optimizing formulas, label reviews, finding that right partner in terms of a co-man, and navigating the CFIA website in terms of food safety, and helping build brands understand COGS and so that they can scale profitably without losing their soul, is what I like to say.
Wow. Well, Christine, why don't you tell me a little bit more about your food job?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, it's definitely varied. And Laura, I love that whole without losing their soul piece. That's so
Yeah,
important.
I'm going to touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, I feel like we
Yeah,
should dig into
yeah.
that. But yeah, so I'm a research chef, certified research chef, and I work in innovation. So I've been working in the food industry for almost 20 years. Time source, and you're having a great time. And my role has shifted quite a bit in the last in the last 10 or so years. So certainly in the last 10 years, I've been focusing on innovation, working with clients. I have a consultancy called iHeartFood Consulting, and I work with clients from startups to established brands and also ingredient companies as well as commodity groups. And really, it's diving into the potential of food and also ingredients from a culinary lens perspective, all the way up to commercialization. And it's been an incredible journey, and love working with new clients and also just learning about people's journeys. And Laura and I have a podcast, Munching on Molecules, where we dive into the stories of founders, entrepreneurs, because this world it's so big, but it's also so interconnected and small at the same time. So what's really cool is that we get the opportunity to get out, interview, go to different events, and also connect folks in the food industry, which is huge and so rewarding.
I love that. Love that plug. It's so good. But I mean, I was going to do it myself. And the podcast is amazing. And I love hearing from, such a range of people that you explore in the interviews, and like hearing the stories and the excitement. You sometimes you lose those stories when you go to the grocery store. You see just rows upon rows, and then you kind of have to go out of your way to sometimes a lot of times explore those stories. So hearing it in a podcast form, I love hearing people get excited about the work that they do.
Definitely. And people are busy.
I know. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
people get so busy and they're like, they're focusing on the thing, they're focusing on production, or they're a small but mighty team. And it's like, okay, how do we like just help them with the storytelling
Yeah.
piece and provide an outlet?
And
Yeah.
celebrate their wins too,
Yeah.
right? They don't take their time to celebrate those wins, which is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with consultancy, like it sounds like your job is like many different food jobs, because at bigger companies, you can have one person where that's like their specific role to do the optimization, the formulation, or scaling it and such. So there's so many places where I could tease that, but maybe just give me an example of maybe of like a client that you've helped, just to kind of better cement what the work that you're doing is.
Well, a lot of my clients are small businesses. So, in terms of they're still starting in the farmers market and they have dreams and aspirations to move into retail. So, what does that look like in terms of scale? So I could take their formulation, help them find a co-man, or optimize it so that it runs on a manufacturing line, not just in a commissary kitchen, but really figure out what kind of equipment can match or help you scale if you're making a sauce, right? So think about, what kind of kettles, what kind of hot fill equipment, packaging as well, because I like to think about the three P's that you run in parallel. So your product, i.e. your formulation, your packaging, and then your process. And process by meaning like the equipment and the process steps, like the SOPs, because they don't have that time and sort of knowledge to see what that would look like in terms of scale. And then the really thing that I'd like to influence and help them understand is the COGS piece, so the cost of goods sold piece, because I think that's really important, especially if you're getting into retail and grocery where margins are so tight. And sometimes it's just being realistic to make sure your dreams are profitable, because
Uh,
that's what it is really down to, is that nitty-gritty margin number. Can your business scale?
mm,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good example. As you're speaking though, I'm just thinking about the co-manufacturing piece because like we
Mm-hmm.
think of like each company just runs their own products, but I do know that a lot of companies do co-manufacturing. And
Yeah.
is there even a lot of options for that? Like I'm thinking, is that a difficulty right there?
Good question. In
Hmm.
Canada, we have a scale up problem. We have gorgeous ideas, really great innovators, but we don't have a variety of co-mans. Here in BC, even we have a lot of sauce, hot fill co-mans, some dry blending options. But if you truly want to be innovative, a lot of the co-manufacturing innovation, like retort, there's one or two here in Canada, whereas in the US, there's a few
Hmm.
you can choose from, like a spreadsheet list of it. So absolutely, it is one of our biggest gaps here. And there's some really great organizations that are helping close that gap. Like Christine just recently went to the Grove at Western
Hmm.
Fair, so I think there's some opportunities there. Christine and I visited that place a couple years ago as part of the CFIST London
Yes,
ingredients
conference.
conference,
Yeah.
right? And they were just beginning, but I think that's another great space where there's opportunities to scale because they have a packaging innovation center there, which I think is also another gap out here for companies wanting to scale and lean on commands.
That makes
Mhm.
sense. And I guess like a lot of your roles, just even helping people find those because I can
Hmm.
imagine for someone who's in the food space already, like yourself, you're aware of the players, but if you're helping someone from that farmer's market to their dream,
Yeah,
like just even finding the resources would be like a challenge.
yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I think it's like finding that it has to be a right fit for the manufacturer to take on that
Mm,
that customer as well. So
absolutely.
that market, that fit for the customer to go to the manufacturer, like are they ready to actually go to that next step? Have they
Mm,
tested their idea in market? Are they ready to take on perhaps additional costs? And the minimums that the co-packer will need for that to be a viable business as well. So it has to be a good relationship moving into that next phase of growth. And I think that's where that challenge is. I do see an opportunity for like the different hubs, and there
yeah.
are different hubs like the London one. The Grove is incredible because, different size businesses. There's pilot kitchens across the
Hmm.
country, but it's also finding um, it can be a little bit more costly, and each location's different. So you have to really dig into. And I think that's the benefit of working with groups that might have a finger on the pulse when it comes to, okay, what's going to be a good fit for this point in time, and then where are you going to be growing in the next year and 2 years? What does your capacity look like?
So, Christine, I think I jumped over you when it came to the example. I think we kind of skirted over. So, would you be able to maybe talk about one of your clients or just something that you've worked with, just to, again, bring that example forward?
So how I work with industry, really it comes down to what the client needs. So it's looking at if it's, more of a startup and they're looking at front end ideation, more of that culinary deep dive. It's like, okay, let's work through some concepts. Let's dive into some data, understanding what are some of the gaps in the market that we could really look at innovating in. So if it's packaging, if it's perhaps a new culinary build that's based off of some trends that are coming up or that are currently in market, because you can pull from a number of different platforms, whether
Mhm.
it's trends in restaurants, for example, that eventually trickle into CPG, or what we're seeing at more of the global scale. But we want to kind of tease out some new exciting concepts that would work well for perhaps for like a line extension. So there's that front end side. There's the piece of like leaning into, okay, how do we utilize different ingredients? How do we really express how ingredients can be working in formulations in a way that's going to optimize the formulation and bring even more value to the manufacturer, but then of course to the end customer. So a lot of the end ideation, but then also working with the client along the way in terms of scale up, making sure that those culinary elements are still performing well all throughout the development process through the stage gate. And I know Laura and I love talking about stage gate and making sure that we have those checks and balances all the way through to commercializations, making sure that those products are still performing and still delighting all the way to the shelf.
So stage gate, that's a new term for me. You gotta explain.
Oh.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is so fun. Okay,
Oh,
Yeah, I
we'll kind of
actually
go
have
back
not
and
heard.
forth. Okay. So it's like when we think about the innovation process, so thinking about the innovation process, the product development process is essentially laying out in a whole series of gates. So it's understanding, okay, what do we need to have as that check before we move on to the next stage? And early stage can be like, here's an idea, where does this land in terms of viability? And Laura talked about like the three Ps. Actually, do you want to kick it over? Because there's also like a modified stage gate. I'm more on the
Yeah.
modified stage gate where it's a little bit less rigorous, but you're still getting all the details that you need. Actually, do you want to chat about the three
Yeah.
Ps? I think you do such a great job in this.
Well, for me, the biggest thing that StageGate resolves is two things. One is risk, and one is uncertainty. So as you start at the very beginning, stage zero, you don't know what you don't know, right? So your risk for spending capital, your resources, and your time is so large because you don't know where you need to end up or what resources you need. And then the uncertainty too. You don't know
Mhm.
what you don't know. And so
Yep.
the premise behind StageGate is you take it through a series of stages, that was Christina was saying, and within those stages are these gates. So the gates is let's re-examine again the three Ps, or some people like to call it the DVF framework, which is the desirability, so the consumer point of view, the viability, so profit, right? Business is always important, and then the feasibility, the F, so technical feasibility. And within those gates, so you create a series of workflows and steps, then you meet together as a team within the gates, and then you look at those three things, the desirability, the viability, and feasibility. Can we move to the next? And then you make those decisions as a team. Okay, do we go, do we kill, or do we hold?
I was gonna say, I'm like, and sometimes the best decision is to hold or to
Yeah,
kill,
Okay.
because sometimes we fall like there is that possibility of falling in love with your idea, right? Or maybe there's a key stakeholder that had an idea,
right.
they think it's this golden idea, but now through a whole series of perhaps rapid experiments and highly encourage rapid experimentation because that's how we
Absolutely.
learn and gather data. Also feasibility. It's like, okay, well, what do we need for this product to be successful? Are we
Hmm.
hitting those margins that we need so we can actually make a profit with the retailers that we're looking to target? And then really identifying who the stakeholders are at each of
Yeah.
the stages, because I think sometimes it can get complex. And I
Hmm.
think that having that clear layout, you're going to get products into market a lot faster. You're going to fail faster, learn information a lot faster as well, or perhaps pivot, because that's what, often we need to do in the food industry is pivot based off of, supply chain challenges, or maybe we're not able to access this ingredient or this packaging. So we need to figure out a different way. And really it's a whole series of it's solution finding. That's what this is.
Yeah. Fun
Yeah.
fact, StageGate model was developed by a University of Toronto professor. I'm forgetting his
Oh, I
name.
forget to
I
say,
should
yeah.
know about I
I'm
should
like, I've
know
got
his
my book right
name.
here.
Yes. Yes. And the reason he started it, so as part of his Ph.D. thesis probably. I might be screwing this up. But he did say he asked what makes these companies successful. So he kept looking at all across, not just CPG, but across the industry in Canada. How are they successful? And then he found through a series of interviews, oh, they follow this framework without even talking to each other. He noticed this common thread.
Huh.
And so he called it StageGate. And so it's ever since evolved. And a lot of big, large CPG national companies have taken it on as a way to move forward and launch it. And innovate. However, the contrarian approach is it's so slow. You need everyone to sign off. But Christine did say there's a flex, right?
Mhm.
There's a way to move faster and innovate better and efficient. And because we both work in scrappy sort of companies, we have these tools that we like to employ and still have that same foundation of stage gate.
Wow.
Mhm.
I love how your job is just this combination of, you got the food science, which we haven't even really touched upon right here, but also the business side. And
Mhm. Yeah.
it's a nice alternative for those that, maybe they love science, they love like that testing and aspects of it, but then, they're not fully going to want to be in the lab, but they love that business aspect, that getting out there, that talking. Like it really sounds like it's a great like mix of all the different aspects.
Yeah, I think it definitely is, and I think that's the difference of perhaps working with more of a startup space or
Mhm.
entrepreneurial space where you do need to wear multiple hats because perhaps it is a small but nimble team. So to be able to walk alongside and think about the business side, because if for example, if you're brought in for, optimizing a formula, or
Yeah.
one of our teammates are brought in to optimize a formula, that's one element, but it's like, what are we really striking here? What are we trying to get to from like a margin standpoint? Are we still delivering on the delight, the sensory delight? Because you're starting to now think about all these different angles. Are we going to have the shelf life that we need? If we
Hmm.
do modify, perhaps we do adjust some of the ingredients or perhaps processing. So it really is a holistic take when it comes to product development and commercialization, and then not just getting it on shelf, but then thinking about, okay, how do we get this thing off shelf if it's
Right.
that
Yeah.
small of an organization? Because you can get it there, but then, the question will be, will consumers enjoy it? Will they know it even exists in perhaps a very crowded space?
Yeah. And then buy it again.
And then buy it again.
The
That's another
hardest thing
important
to
thing.
Yeah,
do.
exactly, exactly.
I was gonna be like, how do you do this? And I was like, wait, they just told me about the framework. That's
And it's
that's
not just one person. It's
Yeah.
really meant to
It's a
be
team.
yeah. And when you think
Hmm.
about innovation, when you think about development, it's not just on one person. You might be brought in as a consultancy, but it's meant to, you go in and then you work within the team, and then you ideally inspire the team, and then you all get behind this mission on bringing this product to market in the most hopefully powerful way.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like I'm just thinking, like, how did you actually end up getting here? Because a lot of people follow that path where they work in the company and then they stay there for 20 years, or they just kind of jump between within the industry. But
Mhm.
to break out and do your own consultancy, that sounds really scary, but it also sounds very exciting at the same time. So, like, walk me through, like, how did you even end up here?
Yeah.
Do
Do
you
you
want
want
me
to
to
go
start?
first, Laura? Yeah, go for it. I'll go after. I'll go after. We got this rhythm. We got this
Yeah.
rhythm.
Okay.
So my degree was a mixture of food science and business. It was called food market analysis. I'm not purely a food scientist. So I did have a little bit of business marketing and accounting as part of my degree here at UBC. They no longer offer it. I wish they
Oh,
do
that's
because
surprising.
it's a great program. But the only jobs that were available when I first started was quality control, food safety and
Mm.
quality control. So I was literally on the line checking the width and the size of the cabbage rolls and taquitos. Those were one of my first few jobs. I was out in the field. I'm doing food safety HACCP when HACCP was still new to the whole industry. And then I had the opportunity to tackle what was called SRED, so Scientific Research and Experimental Development Tax Credit. So I was like, you know what? I haven't used my business background. I'm going to try that. And I did for a bit because it was great because when you're in R&D, those are the funding, non-dilutive funding programs that you would apply to as
Mm.
a product developer because you can get money back or tax credits from the government, from the Canadian government. And then I was like, you know what? I miss the food industry. I really want to go back, but I want to try it product development. So because of my shred tax credit, I was able to find a job in a commercial bakery, and we supplied the Starbucks line and all kinds of other food service options. It was purely product development. I even implemented stage gates in the
Okay.
company. Yeah, it was so good. And then a series of other product development roles, and then I ventured into cannabis because it was so brand new at the time. They were looking for an innovation manager. I worked in the organic cannabis LP, and I really wanted to launch gummies and beverages and all kinds of fun, innovative things related to cannabis. But the industry has its ups and downs. It was part
Hmm.
of the I was part of the company that part of the group of people that were let go. And honestly, it was that sort of being let go was the opportunity for me to like think back and you know what do I really love doing? And really it was helping a lot of these startup companies, which I used to help back when I was doing it at the side of my desk. So, you know what? I said, I only have one life to live. This is it. I'm going to try it. That was 4 years ago. And here I am still running my consultancy company.
Wow, that
Yeah.
sounds, I love the ups. You know, sometimes it's making a good situation out of a bad situation. Sometimes you just need something to like wake you up and just be like,
Yeah,
this, I wasn't actually enjoying this, or, now is the better time. It's like, you know, you never know when opportunity is going to come knocking.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was being laid off. It was like
Not the most
not that I was
favorable way, but I guess it kind of
exactly.
forces you to do something.
Yeah, no, totally.
Change.
Totally. Yeah, the change.
Earlier in the episode, you heard that Lara Tiro graduated from the University of British Columbia. And maybe you're thinking, I'd love to have a food job like hers. Well, you can by enrolling in the school that started it all. At the Faculty of Land and Food Systems, LFS, you'll join a pioneering, supportive, and internationally recognized faculty focused on exploring the connections between land, resources, environment, and health. It's where students dive into the big questions shaping our food future, from food security and sustainable agriculture to community health and global food systems. They're creating solutions to an ever-changing world. Whether you're just starting out or looking to deepen your expertise, LFS offers a wide range of undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs, including the Master of Food Science and the Food, Nutrition, and Health programs. These programs are designed to meet you where you are in your career journey and help you make a real impact. If Laura's story sparks something in you and you're curious to learn about what is possible, then check out the Faculty of Land and Food Systems at the University of British Columbia, and you can find more information about that in the show notes of this podcast. So with that, let's get back into our conversation with Laura and Christine.
What about you, Christine?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it's definitely been a journey, and I'm so grateful for it. I started off in the culinary industry. So initially, when I started off, I'm like, I'm going to be a chef. I'm going to travel the world and do all these things. And I loved the culinary space. I loved working. I did really enjoy working in restaurants, and I focused that on my first part of schooling in like culinary management. Got my chef diploma and got like went out there and just started cooking. Got my red seal. I'm like, this is great. And I was thinking that I had this one moment and just looking at the dining room, thinking, I'm like, okay, we got like 40 people here. This is really cool. And I'm like, but I just thought to myself, I'm like, I was that kid that watched how it's made,
Yeah.
that's,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I just kind of reflected on that. I'm like, this is really cool. We're serving this dining room, but I'm like, my heart was in like producing more in terms of how do we scale this up? I was thinking about that because you're always thinking about, taking a recipe from like 10 to 20 to 100, perhaps 200 for an event. Long story short, I went back to school, focused on product development. I was out east in PEI, worked at the Culinary Institute, Smart Kitchen, after I graduated from the Culinary Institute. And really, it was a jump off point into product development. Like we had it as part of our course curriculum, as part of my degree. And I really enjoyed that process. And that opened my eyes to the startup space where startup companies were coming in, really needing support when it came to innovation, when it came to doing perhaps trade missions. So we did a lot of traveling at the Smart Kitchen, all around Europe, promoting different products that we were co-developing with some of these smaller brands, but then also established brands. And then I just had this, and I grew up in Toronto. So I went to school in Toronto, then went out to PEI, studied in PEI, and worked out there on the island for a few years. And I just had like a ding in my heart. I'm like, I wanna work for like a larger CPG company. So I had the opportunity. I moved over to Campbell's in Toronto and had an incredible experience out there, working on the innovation side, and just learning like from a different space, from like more that startup early innovation side to okay, now we're thinking about benchtop to scale up, and the people there were incredible. And then from that point, I had the opportunity to move over to more the commodity side. So yeah, I worked with the pulse industry for a few years and just learned more about agriculture and ingredients, and that just opened up your my mind to just different opportunities in
Mhm.
that space. Yeah, and then shortly after that point moved out to Manitoba and then BC. We kind of moved all over the country and started consulting. And at that point, it was really an opportunity to work with companies that were established but wanted to create new lines of their products. So I was thinking about, okay, how do we scale this up? How do we take this really innovative culinary concept and bring this into a new format? So I had the opportunity to travel and work kind of all over the place, which was really exciting in States, and then also doing some scale ups in other countries as well. So that was part of the journey. And really it just kind of kicked off. And then really through consulting, it's been an opportunity to have a really diverse role. So creating strategy around how to get products to market, making connections, because I really believe, and I always say this and we laugh about this, but it's like three degrees of Lara Tiro. But really, when you're in the consulting space, it's like, how do you connect these big ideas with people and people with big ideas? And then the execution part is so important. So really the consulting space has been that. It's connecting ideas to, okay, let's scale this. Let's put solutions in place. And there's that innovation. Now we need to execute it, and blending those elements together. And I really think that that's the exciting part. And I think it's not necessarily, you'll put your plan together for the year or for the next few years as you're consulting. And it's a matter of like, okay, what kind of projects do you really want to work on? Who are the type of people that you want to work with, and laying that out. And I think that values alignment is so important when it comes to consulting, because when you have your values aligned, from working, from respect, from, bringing even to the definitely bringing the types of product into the market, I think all of that matters for successful execution. So I think it's designing. It's like designing, designing relationships, but designing products, and then designing, how do we actually bring this to fruition?
I love that both of you keep bringing up this idea of connections and relationships and people, because we again, I come back to the grocery store, you just see this like line of products and you might not see like the people and the stories behind it. But then when you get in the space, it's such life-changing when you've been in the production facility, you see the product on the line and you're like, oh, this date code was from this time. And I was like, okay, so that QC staff was working on that. And then it was this line person. And then, oh yeah, I know the R&D. And then there was the account man. It's really puts into perspective that even though we have this like processing industry on this grand scale, like there's so many people behind it, and seeing the connections that so many people are involved, and it just wouldn't happen. And like I could imagine that is such an exciting part being like in consultancy, is just hearing about people seeing people get excited about things. It's just like a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell our Munching on Molecules podcast story?
Oh my
this
gosh.
Is why. This is
yes, please.
Veronica.
This is also linked
okay.
This is definitely a connection piece as well.
I think you're just plugging.
No. We are hardcore plugging.
We are. Sorry, Veronica.
Ouch.
But honestly,
I
it was connection and people. So Christina and I kind of knew each other before heading to Germany. We were invited to a trade mission, a plant protein trade mission up in Rostock, Germany, a very northern town in Germany. And I had posted on CFIN, and then Christine's like, "You're going? Are you going?" And so we ended up meeting in Germany, and we toured some fabulous innovation facilities, people doing really cool things. And there was a point where, like, you know what, we need to share, because, like you said, Veronica, it is the stories behind the final product that you see. Like, what were their journeys to get to this space? What were their failures? What were their wins? What was that pathway? Because it's never linear. So yeah, and because of that trip, we decided to start a podcast. 15 months later, here we are, Christine.
Congrats on that. Like it takes a lot of time, and as you mentioned, planning and getting the person and then prepping. It's a lot in terms of it, but it's so much fun to be able to share it. So yeah, no, I'm too focused on you that my next question's like out of my head.
That's the best. We can just keep this free flowing.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's there's so many stories and there's so many different like perspectives on how, two people can see the same thing. And like from your perspective, you both have such different backgrounds, and I can imagine that also plays a role in like how you go into consultancy, because you have like you mentioned, Lara, you have the food science, the business side, and then Christine, you have this like rich culinary background. Does that affect how you approach like innovation, or do you find like it totally diverts the two of you?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of kick it
Go,
off.
yeah,
So
go.
it's interesting because like we have different backgrounds for sure, but I think I don't know. I think we have similar lenses in some cases, and of course like very different lenses as well. I think through our experience. So like when I think about it's like culinary, but it's always thinking about the scalability side of things. So I think becoming like a research chef and in getting into that space, we're still covering a lot of those foundational elements when it comes to food science. Like I'm not a food scientist, but it's
Mhm.
leaning into, okay, what do we need to know in order to translate this idea into that next stage and pulling in the right people, because at the end of the day it's not just one person taking this product to
Mhm.
commercialization, but really it's a team. So like wrapping around, the innovation process, who needs to be a part of this process for the success of a launch or for the success of some kind of execution, be it an event. And I think that part's the interesting part because there's definitely overlap, but I think there's also distinctions as well. Laura, what are your thoughts on that? Like when it comes
Well,
to how do we look? I'm always thinking about flavor. You are too. Like you are
yes.
super culinary as well. When I think about your palate, when I think about how you describe and get excited about food, like I think we just totally geek out on the sensory, and then we think about, okay, what does the process look like?
I know. Having dinner with the two of us takes a long, long time because we're always like, how does it smell? How does it taste? How does it tingle in my tongue?
Hmm.
And honestly, I think that's what really reunites the two of us is taste because it has to delight and surprise the consumer at the end
Hmm.
of the day. They have to put that product back in their basket for that second shopping experience, right? So the very first thing that I always like to think about is taste. And then, does it make you money? And scale, right? And then that
Hmm.
all leads all to the other questions or processes that Christina's talked about. But at the end of the day, I think for me, it has to taste good. It has to. But why are we in this to begin with? Like I just want my taste buds to be delighted. So really I think that's where we align in terms of our consulting approach, that it has to taste good and then also the business aspect of it. Otherwise, it's not a business, it's a hobby, right?
Mm.
If you want to scale your product, it's just a hobby and that's good. I mean, I'm all for it, but at the end of the day, we have to launch brands that are sustainable and on shelf for five,
Hmm.
10 years, because, we're all helping this industry grow, especially here in Canada.
I think that's a really good approach, is the food should taste good. I mean, I think
Yes.
Oh my
if
gosh.
I feel especially now with like how the world is right now, I think like a lot of people are looking for like little luxuries right now and just like
Hmm.
they want really good tasting food because they might not be able to, spend as much money to go out and like do like a big trip, but they could maybe afford the Dubai chocolate. No. Feels like
Uh,
sorry, we've been talking about it. I feel
oh,
like
really?
it's no, my lab is just, it's now kind of the joke right now, like the
Okay.
Labubu
Oh,
crumble,
no.
Oh
Labubu
yeah.
crumble
No,
cookie,
don't talk.
24 karat.
I tell you.
So good.
Oh, no. Labubu Dubai chocolate.
Yeah,
I want to learn more. I want to learn more about this.
it's just like this. I don't know. There's a place in the States that's selling like Labubu shaped Dubai chocolate
Oh,
on
no.
a cookie.
Whoa, that is
What
so
have we
fun to
done?
hear, and I'm sure even more fun to say and
I,
eat.
I can't even concept, but but you could imagine that a lot of people are like going there just for like what it shaped like, but rather than the food and all that. So I jump to that just because I'm thinking about sometimes, you just want really good food
Yeah,
and sometimes it's harder to get than you realize, unfortunately.
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. But there's good food in
Oh,
Toronto. We are so
100%.
Oh
excited for the
my gosh.
restaurant scene. So
Oh yeah.
excited.
Yes.
I admit I don't actually eat that often in Toronto. I'm usually like in my like when I come back to Hamilton, because when I've been working in Toronto for all day, I don't really want to stay much later because it's a long commute home. But the Hamilton
Hmm.
food scene is so good as well. Like,
I've been.
Oh,
yeah, oh yeah,
okay.
And
yeah.
the arts and craft and the art scene is so cool in Hamilton too,
Oh my gosh,
I have to
they do
say.
like an art thing every month for free. They shut down like the street and like anyone can sell their art. It's so cool.
It's cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
but we're
Sorry,
not talking
digressing.
about
Sorry.
we're not talking about the art scene in Hamilton. But
We could.
what
We can. We can.
I'm
This
happy
is your
to.
show, Veronica.
Yeah.
oh no, no. But what I want to talk about is the again coming back to the relationship space. So do you have like a deck of like, okay, so this person and I'm going to reach out to them, like I guess organically I'm thinking about when you're starting to scale, you're starting to work with maybe co-manufacturers, when you're trying to build up that relationship that might not be the startups themselves, like how does that process work? Like, how do you reach out to, do you just like text someone and say, hey, I have a really cool product from this person. Can we get it in on Friday? Like, I don't think it's like that, but like, how do you build that connection space?
So for example, like Laura is so like deeply connected, especially in a number of different ways, but especially on the co-manufacturing side. And I feel like you have like it's wild how many people you're connected to. And I think just it being I think the connection, especially when you're involved in so many different industry associations, that world
Mhm.
becomes even smaller. So out here we have BC Food and Bev, incredible organization. We're members, tight community, great manufacturers in that space as well as brands. I think also, going to conferences, going and meeting
Mhm.
with people, especially like if it's CIFST, if it's like, for example, the Research Chefs Association conference, if it's IFT, if it's, I think we both try to get out into the world as much as possible. And a bit part of that is understanding who's in the room, what are the businesses in perhaps those cities? Because, like we said, like the world is small, but it's also, you can connect with people. So I think when you meet with people face to face at a conference, for example, and you get to understand what their capabilities are, they're part of your network now, and that's really special. So I think getting out, exploring, having conversations as much as humanly possible, and learning about who's doing what, and asking for a tour. Like companies are just, for the most part, they've been really good about offering
Really?
tours and allowing us like to
Mhm.
go in and see what
Huh.
those facilities look like. Because then for us, it's like, okay, great. We know what the capabilities are, and this is great in case we have a project that could align really, really well, or perhaps a contact is looking for a connection. What are your thoughts, Laura, on that one?
Yeah, I think for me, to add to that, in my career, I've had the opportunity to work with a variety of co-mans, not just in one particular category, but multi-categories. So I used to work at Luvo, which was a frozen single-serve meal, nutritionally dense, chef-forward meal company. And I had the opportunity to work on various types of product categories. So not just frozen meals, but beverages, some other value added sauces, plant proteins, and and then I worked at Little Potato Company, and we were looking at the value added potatoes, so we looked at sous vide, and I think for me it really is relationship. So I try to stay in contact with a lot of co-mans that I worked with in the past, even if the relationship didn't turn out, like even if they didn't sign the contract agreement, I still think there's always opportunities further down the road. You never know, right? This industry
Mhm.
is the largest, smallest industry. So
Yep.
you're those connections really make a difference. And like Christine jokes about 3 degrees with Lara Tiro, but it's just something that I really hold close to my heart is the relationships matter,
Hmm.
because they can do the sort of like, oh, can you get me in on Friday? That's never been done before. I don't know anyone who has that
I
relationship,
did not
but
believe that when it was
I
coming out of my
wish.
mouth.
I wish that would be great. And yeah, like for any student that's listening, like join the associations, join
Hmm.
CIFST or your local here. There's BCFT, and even the food and bev associations across Canada. There's
Hmm.
many for each province. Even RCA, the Research Chef Association of Canada. There's one here. Um, and then, here in Vancouver, we have this ladies tech, food tech professionals group that we try to meet quarterly called the Xena Food Professionals. And we meet for dinner every 4 months. And, it's really a group of ladies wanted to get together and just talk about the industry, talk about their insights, look for mentors. And it's been going on for 15 years. And we have dinners in a local restaurant, and we just exchange contacts, and oh, do you are you looking for this? I know someone who could introduce to you this person. And it's just great. It's everyone supporting each other, because even though the suppliers who are attending, those the ingredient distributors are in competitive industries, we all want to help each other because
Hmm.
this industry is so small.
I
Yeah.
know
Definitely.
this
And I
is like,
want to, oh, sorry, I was going to add to that as well. Another little, perhaps little plug is the Canadian Food Innovation
Oh
Network
yeah,
that we're
mhm,
a part of.
totally.
Like,
yeah.
they've been incredible, super supportive. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, looking for a manufacturer, it's like putting that out into the Yodel chat,
Yeah.
and people just being like, hey, not this one, but perhaps this one, and reaching out. So much support on that front as well. And I've been finding that great conversations happening, whether it's ingredients, whether it's
Hmm.
manufacturing,
Mhm.
topics for education, you name it, or conferences, or even thinking about the thing that Laura and I went to in Germany for the
Oh,
alternative
a
protein.
trade
Yeah,
mission.
so exactly.
Yeah, no, CPIN's awesome. And also getting those up, you realize how small it is that you can actually
Mm,
get someone to respond back to. Like it's big, but
Yes.
it's small at the same time. But
Mhm.
I just
absolutely.
had to ask a question about like, I know this is very oddly specific, but do you just like pre-plan when you're gonna reconnect to people? Because it sounds if it's like 3 degrees, Laura, like how do you actually keep up with like what's appropriate? Do you just like email them or does it happen organically? Like I feel like that as a student was always
Mm,
something really stressful.
mm,
It's like I want to stay connected, but it's like I don't like you're kind of new to the professional world, so you don't really even know what's appropriate. Like does it like how do you stay connected?
I think LinkedIn, like I think
yeah.
LinkedIn's so helpful if you're doing regular
Mm,
posts, and that's something I'm personally working on. I know we do a lot of posting for the podcast, but I think staying connected, and if you're going to a conference, for example, where perhaps you met the other person, like, or you're thinking about Expo West or CHFA in Toronto, it's like, hey, like we met at, West. Are you going to be at East, for example? And we'd love to, meet up, see how things are going, and just sending a little note. I love sending little notes on LinkedIn. I think that's always
hmm
helpful to stay connected, or even just to have like a little coffee date if people are open, like a quick little chat to learn more perhaps about their space, their role, their company. I think having more of a conversation,
hmm
and just kind of just when they come to mind. I think if you're looking for something specific, of course, be mindful, perhaps put in your calendar. But I think staying
hmm
connected, it's that intentional racial relationship development.
Yeah, even like virtual coffee shop, you don't even
Yeah.
have to have a IRL coffee date. But
True.
I would highly encourage the local food technologists section. Like here, we have one called BCFT, and they're always supportive of students mingling with industry because they're the next, the next crop, if you will, of those being in industry. And I think it's networking is like an underrated skill. And if you
hmm
do it earlier and you partner with someone who's really great, like UBC offers a mentoring program for students, so it really broadens your horizon of who to know in industry. So I think just leaning in on your local food science groups or even your local food technologists association, just my end as a food scientist, I think has really helped.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think about
No,
students as well. And like my mind kind of goes to like different opportunities. And actually
Mm,
my husband and I talk about this a lot because I think it's brought about so many wonderful opportunities in our lives, like early days when we were students.
mm,
And it's like try to find the coolest project out there
yeah,
and volunteer. Like even,
yeah.
at this point in time, it's
hmm
like, okay, yes, of course you want to make money and everything, but especially when you're starting out as a student, find the coolest thing out there and just and offer your time and also offer solutions. Like
hmm
get in there, bring that next level of value and get that incredible work experience, meet the people, because that in itself will be incredible. And those connections that you'll have through that volunteer opportunity is something that could last a lot longer.
well, I'm gonna, even though I'd love to keep on talking and I have so many other questions, and I feel like this conversation could go for another hour because I do. And I'm not gonna start asking you what was the last book that you read and your last music song and like your Spotify playlist. Not all that for today. But I'm gonna maybe just leave it at one last question for each of you because we can do that really quickly for parting words. For students and early career professionals who want to do what you're doing, what should they start doing right now to prepare for that career?
Oh, can I start, Christine?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I have to think. I have to noodle for a moment.
The one thing, just start. Don't be afraid to carve your path. I mean, my consultancy role didn't exist. I didn't even know there was such a thing. So listen to podcasts like this one, because
hmm
you just have to create the job that you wish you had, and you never know. Like I never knew all these experiences, all these varied experiences in different companies would lead me to where I am today. So just don't be afraid to start networking, be curious. Yeah, that's a lot. That's more than one thing. Sorry. There's many
Bro,
things.
you condensed it in like a minute, so I'll count it.
Okay. All right.
I was gonna say ditto, but maybe I'll add a couple more things. Ditto, and I think it's especially for someone like a student or someone looking to switch and to different career, it's
Mhm.
understanding what your superpower is, like what
Mm,
really understanding what your gifts are and that value that you're going to be bringing, going deep in that space, and just starting. I think that's a
mhm,
huge part, and I think staying curious, whether you're a student, whether you've been in your career for perhaps 30 plus years, it's like stay curious. And I think that part will serve others and then yourself so well throughout your entire career.
Yeah. Also,
Oh,
don't forget to
Okay.
learn about margins because
oh my gosh.
business is
It needs to be,
important.
yeah.
This is business.
Know your numbers, know
Sorry.
your numbers.
Know your numbers, know your numbers, know your numbers.
Okay, I love those pieces of advice. And again, I'd love to keep talking and like tease them a
know.
little bit more, but I got to leave it there. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Christine. Thank you so much, Lara, for coming on the show, telling me about what you do, your consultancy, like how you approach different things. It's so interesting to see how you two approach it the same but differently, and just hearing how you got there. So thanks for coming on the show.